This is our Ryoan-Ji house in Kyoto that we have bought with the aim to renovate it into something quite special. The renovation itself, it requires us to design, of course, and the act of design, it requires us to have a clear intent, a purpose, a goal as to what and how we're designing. Without it, we would just be kind of searching blindly in the dark. So I'm creating this video with the aim for us to better understand the design of a Japanese room, a Japanese house, a Japanese town. And there are two books that I reference in this video. One is called In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanesaki, a great read, really highly recommend. And the second one is called Measure and Construction of Japanese House by Heino Engel. They both are part of the same puzzle, two pieces of the same puzzle. One is for more experiential side of things, and the second one is for more formal or quantifiable side of things or of reality. And I find these books to be quite important as they both describe a mindset that is quite foreign to the Westerners, but it does have a great potential to enrich the way we create, to enrich our creations, if understood correctly. And I begin with a traditional Japanese town, a more residential part of Kyoto, to be more precise. Not just that its atmosphere is quite lively, there is also a certain melody to the street, a certain rhythm. The liveliness is easy to explain. It's all in the city planning, it's all in the zoning laws. You see, there are 12 types of land use zones in Japanese cities, and even in the most restrictive Type 1 low-rise residential zone, small shops, cafes, and offices, they are permitted. This automatically creates small pockets in every single street where locals can meet, have hobby clubs, work, and so on. This is something that I miss in Sweden. A neighborhood that we live in has been built for an architectural exhibition in 2001, basically to showcase the best that Sweden could do at the time. So the architectural and urban quality is quite nice, but it's at the same time pretty damn lifeless, especially in the evenings. This is because there's simply nothing to do. As for the before mentioned melody of the street, well, we will have to start with a foot. A shaku is a standard length measurement that was used in Japan for the last 300 years or so. It's a measurement of a Japanese foot, which got over time standardized into 303 millimeters or 99% of an American foot. This is a measurement on which everything else rests. In the countryside, 6 shaku makes up 1 ken, a larger measurement. While in the town, 6.5 shaku makes 1 ken. Since this might become really confusing really fast, I'll stick to the town measurement for now. Also because our Ryoan-Ji house is a townhouse that is in Kyoto, so it makes sense to stick to the 6.5 shaku is 1 ken measurement. The ken measurement is used to describe the distance between any two columns, or rather centers of any two columns in a Japanese, traditional Japanese house. And between the columns you have the staple of Japanese architecture, the tatami mats. Since the columns have a thickness of their own, the tatami mats are a bit smaller than 1 ken, or 6.5 shaku. They are actually 6.3 by 3.15 in shaku, giving them a proportion of 2 to 1. which enables you to form a square out of 2 tatami mats that would fit perfectly between columns that are 1 ken apart. This kind of modularity, of course, enables a great amount of variations. But these variations are always tied to an initial measurement of a Japanese foot. During the Edo period, these townhouses called Machiya, they were taxed according to the amount of street space that they take up, basically according to how wide their facade is. And because of this, they were built quite narrow and really deep, with only these really small gaps between them, like small passages between them, that would serve as a means to prevent fire from spreading from house to house. And since these gaps would also be measured by the foot in shaku, 4 shaku to be precise, the rhythm from one house to the other, it would stay unbroken, it would never break. Thus, the whole street would sing a melody that starts with a single measurement of a human foot. And this kind of modularity makes it so that the house design and construction are never truly finished, are never truly done. If, for example, a family increases in size, another module can simply be added in. And of course, every element of every module still follows the step, the shaku step that I was talking about previously. And because of this level of standardization at all scales, the carpenter becomes extremely valuable. If the size of every single element, and thus every possible aggregate of them, of space, that's created from them is already clear, the whole effort then moves towards the design on how these elements actually meet, of how they go together. Any error, any deviation in the joints will echo throughout the whole building, thus extreme precision is required. And because of this, I believe that Japanese wood joinery has become the world standard of excellence. And this simplicity that's hiding a soft complexity in construction or spatial arrangement of a Japanese house can also be felt in the interior spaces themselves. Contrary to the West, there's really minimal ornament. The colors are darker and less intense. There's almost no glossiness. Perhaps only can be found in lacquerware, for example. A metallic surface with an oxidized patina on top of it is much more valued than that made of shiny stainless steel, for example. Wood is preferred over tiles even in areas where ceramic tiles would be more practical to use. Soft diffuse of paper is preferred over complete transparency of glass. This and much more rests on a simple premise: light and shadow. In the West, the light is not used for cooking or for reading or bathing. It's rather used to eliminate any presence of a shadow. An evenly brightly lit space, similar to that of a hospital hallway, is seen as safe, clean, and thus controlled. We're able to see everything all at once. But the question then is, how much do we give away for it? while the roof of an European house is regarded much more of a, end point, a cap that's added in or added on top of an existing structure, a traditional Japanese house is built actually under its roof, so the roof comes first. And the primary purpose of said roof is to actually create shadow. Thus, all of those standardized spaces are built inside of a shadow, which not only provides comfort to the carpenters, but also brings certain aesthetic. Every space is thus created in the shadow. In the play between light and darkness, it becomes extremely important, and is the premise of this simplicity that hides soft complexity that I was referring to. It's the main driving force, if you will. This is a heavy microphone, hand hurts. Okay, let's continue. Where was I? The hierarchy, right? The hierarchy of it all of the elements in Japanese house, it's pretty clear. Even in the alcove, where artworks are displayed, the artworks themselves, they are chosen according to the light and shadow qualities of the alcove, not the beauty of the artwork itself. Those scrolls, those art pieces, they need to seamlessly integrate into the interplay between the light and the dark of the alcove, and if they do not, they are simply just discarded. And this holds true to everything. All surfaces in a Japanese house gives way first to the shadow. The light is then used to highlight the areas of functional importance. A reading space, a bathing space, a meditation space. Reflections of light, they dirties the in-betweens between the shadows, right? Thus, matte dark colors are used for that purpose, to have the shadows, to keep the shadows pure. This notion of giving importance to the light through the presence of shadows is something that we'll definitely do our best to grab and get into our Ryoan-Ji house during the renovation design phase, which is the next video, by the way. So now I want you to think about snow that is accumulated on the top of a roof somewhere deep north. It produces vertical loads. Those loads are static. Snow pushes down and never really changes how hard it's pushing down. Now the Japanese typhoon winds and Japanese earthquakes push the house around horizontally, and it's never static, it's actually dynamic. And that's the nastiest of the structural loads, horizontal dynamic load. In the West, we've made rigid structures by introducing diagonal frame elements, basically by triangulating our structures. Those kind of triangles, they make the walls much stiffer and they don't shear. In Japanese traditional houses, diagonal elements are never used. Only vertical columns that are called hashira, that are standing on foundation stones called kutsu ishi kiso, and are tied together with beams. The ones running just above the ground are called dodai. I don't really remember the other names. If you pair this kind of a structural assembly with really heavy tiled roofs that use clay as a bonding layer, well, you get a structure that's really bad at taking horizontal loads. So the question is, why was it done this way? The simple explanation would be because it's more aesthetic not to have any diagonal interruptions between the, within the beautiful grid. And while this might be true, It's really unlikely, as this style of construction was already used in the oldest type of Japanese dwelling called takayuka, which word by word translates to taka is takai high and yuka is floor. And I guess the answer is a bit more complex and revolves around historic public disregard to inventiveness, or disregard to change, perhaps that's a better word. But this is where I kind of stop. There's no need for this video to branch out into historic sociology or however you call it. That wouldn't help with creating an informed Ryoan-Ji house renovation project. We move forward. And yet, there are these few Japanese words that are so ingrained into the land itself that I would be foolish to overlook them. I'm talking about wabi-sabi and kintsugi. These two go hand in hand, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say that kintsugi is somewhat of a reaction to the presence of wabi-sabi, which, let me explain, wabi-sabi is a type of a world view, of a world outlook. And it was derived from Chinese Taoism, as well as, of course, Zen Buddhism. Forgot the word Zen. From the teachings of these two religions or philosophies. In short, wabi-sabi appreciates the imperfection of nature, as well as the fancy word would be the transience of nature. Everything dies, everything is reborn. Nature is crooked, nature is not symmetric, chaotic. It breaks, and as I said, it dies, and it's then born again. All of this is not just celebrated, but also showcased through the artworks that deal with wabi-sabi, or creations that deal with wabi-sabi. For example, a flower arrangement. It's called the ikebana. That's usually placed in the alcove that I was referring to before. It's never placed right in the middle, right in the center, and it's never symmetric. Because nature is never central, and it's never symmetric in itself. Symmetry dictates perfection, and perfection dictates the end of the process. Since the process is infinite, the reality is infinite, perfection is impossible, thus symmetry should be avoided. And kintsugi is a method of mending broken objects or fixing broken objects with the use of gold. This celebrates the beauty of the break line, which enhances the original object rather than diminishing it. When restoring the Ryoan-Ji house, we will do our best to follow this worldview to the best of our abilities, of course, trying to showcase the beauty of every single mended crack, the beauty of imperfection that we have there. And to finish this philosophical foundation that we have made ourselves for the renovation, I will end with a quote from Ernest Hemingway. "The world breaks everyone, and afterward, some are strong at the broken places." Next month's video is already out on Patreon. If you support the channel, you can see it now. And also ask me questions here.